Hi, I'm Nick, creator of Mystery Stitch Designs. I'm here today to show you some inspiration to use with your January stash stalker from the Fabric Snob. So Lindsay has chosen these 8 beautiful fabrics from the collection called Be Mine from Stacy Shu for Moda. Aren't they wonderful? So as you can see behind me, I've used them to make this lovely hearts and chain quilt, which the pattern is available at mysterystitch.com for purchase. And what I'm going to show you today is just another way to use up some of these beautiful fabrics. So Valentine's Day at my house is sort of a big deal. I love to cook a fantastic special meal, and I pull out all the stops and really try out new recipes that I would never normally want to try. So I like to do this big special meal. So I thought that I would do some napkins and placemats to go with my beautiful new meal plan for Valentine's Day. So what I'm going to start with is the napkins and show you how I do beautiful mitered corner fabric napkins. They're super quick and easy. They're adjustable, that if you want a narrower hem or a wider hem, you can go for it. So to start with that, basically we're going to need 2 18-inch squares of fabric. So it's going to use up basically the entire fat quarter. So what I'm going to do is take these 2 floral prints. I think these are super cute and lovely, and they're not so entirely Valentine's Day related that I wouldn't use these any other time of the year. So I'm going to select those 2 and put the rest of the fabrics off to the side. So I'm going to just line up these fabrics on the selvage. And what I'm going to do is actually, I have a big 18.5-inch ruler. I'm going to turn my mat first so I can make one continuous cut. And I'm just laying them together and cutting them at the same time. So first I'm just going to trim off the selvage. And then I just need to pull it over just a smidge because my mat is not quite wide enough. And I'm going to set aside this strip to use with the placemats. There we go. 18-inch square. And again, you can make them a little bit bigger if you wanted to, or a little bit smaller. I like this size because if I want to try doing some fancy folding, I can. This is big enough to do that. So once you have these, what you're going to do is flip it over to the wrong side, and we're going to do some preliminary pressing. Now, basically what we're going to do is turn a ½ inch, turn the edge over ½ an inch, and then press, and then we'll turn it over a second time, a ½ an inch. Again, that measurement is flexible. If you wanted a narrower hem, you could do a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch. If you want it really wide, you could do a 1 inch and a 1 inch. I like the look of a ½ inch, and I'm not going to measure it exactly. I'm just going to eyeball that ½ an inch. And as long as you have a nice straight line, it'll be fine. The more you do this in practice, the easier it gets. Now, the one rule doing this method for the nice mitered corner is once you have this, turn your work clockwise. That's about the only rule. So it makes these corners look really nice and neat, because when we're sewing, we're going to be going in the opposite direction. Okay, so when it comes to sewing your miters, what we're going to do is we're going to start stitching somewhere along the center side of the napkin, and when we get about 3 or 4 inches away from a corner, stop. What you're going to do is open up this corner, and basically you want to see that raw edge there. You want to fold it in a 45-degree line. So what was this corner is going to lay right along that first fold, and you're going to have this nice little 45-degree miter, and then when you fold the fabric back so you have that was your first fold, it's going to make a nice little triangle there, and then when you fold it over the second time, you get this beautiful sharp mitered corner. And what you're going to do is just stitch along this inner edge until you are approximately the same width, and then pick up your presser foot and pivot. So I'll take you over to the sewing machine and show you exactly how that's going to look. And if your machine has needle down, definitely turn it on, because that will help you tremendously. And again, just stitch so you're maybe about 1/8 of an inch in from that folded edge. So what you're going to do is stop, put that first fold over, fold it, and fold it again. So and then pivot. Okay, so again, what you're going to do is open that up, fold it at 45, sort of finger press it, tuck your first edge, and tuck your second edge. You get that nice, beautiful miter. And the reason I do this at the machine instead of doing it in advance is once you get the hang of it, it's so fast and easy to do it as you go. You don't really need to take the time to do it in advance. I also don't worry about stitching down into that miter. I leave that little pocket open. It is secure enough in there that it does not move or come out. You can throw these in the washing machine. You know, that corner is not going anywhere. If you wanted to, you could stitch down it, or you could go back and stitch down by hand if you wanted it to look invisible. Again, so open it up, fold in your corner, tuck, and then sort of tuck it again. And when you come around to where you first started, just stitch over, and you can back stitch. My machine also does a little locking off stitch. And that's napkin number 1. So that took about 5 minutes. You know, once you get going with these, yeah, they're maybe 5 minutes a piece. They do go quite fast. These also make wonderful hostess gifts, or if you just need a quick little gift for a friend for no reason at all. And there we go. And if you want, what you can do is go back, and if your corners aren't, you know, after that manipulation of turning them, you can go back and really give them a good press. And once you've given them a good press, you know, you can fold them into lots of neat little things. I wish I knew how to fold them into fancier little things for you, but I know there's lots of different, you know, like a little crown fold or something like that you can do with them, but if you really want to get fancy, you really need to give them a little bit of starch or something so they can stay super crisp. If you want to do, you know, the things where they have like the flower petals and whatnot. But anyhow, those are our quick 5-minute fabric napkins, which again, I love them. And like I said, they're quick, they're easy, and especially for fabrics that you don't want to cut up because you don't want to lose the pattern, it's great because you get to use them, you get to see them, and you don't have to chop up your beautiful fabric into too small of pieces. So those are our fabric napkins, and let's move on to our placemats. So for the placemats, what we're going to do is we'll do a solid piece for the back and a patchwork piece for the top. So I've also gone ahead and pre-cut 2 pieces of batting. Now I'm just using a regular, this is the Hobbs 80/20, just a thin cotton batting. So I have the batting. For the size of placemats that I like to make them 12 inches by 16 inches. They're big enough without being oversized, but we do have larger plates, so the 12 inches is sort of the minimum. If you had a smaller set, or if you lived in an apartment or something, you wanted just a smaller place setting, if you made them 10.5 inches, you'd be able to get 2 placemats per fat quarter, but because I'm doing them slightly larger, it's basically going to be 1 fat quarter per backing. So because I like things to be in matching sets, I'm going to use these 2 key fabrics as the backings of them, and then out of some of the leftover pieces, I'll add them to these fabrics and make that into the patchwork for the top. What I'm going to do is just cut a 12.5 inch wide strip, and then I'll subcut it to the 16, and then out of that leftover piece, cut some of the squares, and I'll save that other piece for another project. So that was 12.5, and here's 16.5. And what I'm going to do is just jump right over and cut some 2.5-inch squares. Out of this last piece, what I'm going to do is cut a piece that's just 4.5 inches. Basically for the patchwork, what we're going to do is a combination of 2.5-inch squares, 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles, and 4.5-inch squares. Now, the reason I came up with those numbers is because when I was looking at this beautiful stamp fabric, I thought, if I'm cutting just a 2.5-inch square, you're really going to lose the effect of having all of these stamps. But a 4.5-inch square and a 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangle, you'll still be able to see it on these fabrics. So, and also with this, what you will want to do is make sure that, pick a stamp. So I can see here's this queen, here's the repeat there, and the repeat there. I'm going to cut on that line. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I will slide it over. I'm going to cut 1/4 of an inch to the right-hand side of that. And that way, those queen stamps are going to end up being fussy cut right into the fabric. So now I'll trim it to 4.5 inches wide. Yeah, there's 2 queens and a king. Yeah, and if you want ones with the swans in there. So what I'm going to do, I know it kind of looks a little crazy jumping all over the place, but and now on this next one, the flowers are in there. So I think that's all I'm going to use out of the stamp fabric. And then from these 3 remaining ones, what I'm going to do is cut a 2.5-inch wide strip. And then from that strip, I'll subcut a couple of the 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch rectangles and a couple of the 2.5-inch squares. And then we can start working on our layout. And again, there's more fabric here than what I'm actually going to use because I'm only doing 2 placemats. Now, again, if you have a family or you want to do a set for more, by all means, you can cut up all this fabric, or if you wanted to save the extra, you could do a plain fabric on the back instead of using one of these fabrics. So basically what I'm going to do, I like to have things matching. That is just how I roll. So I'm basically going to just divide up pretty evenly, with what I've cut here. And I'll do one, and then I'll go ahead and make the second one to match. So basically it's going to be It's 12 inches. The finished size is 12 inches by 16, which basically means you're going to have 6 by 8 of the 2.5-inch squares, but obviously some of these pieces are going to take up either 4 squares or 2 squares worth of space. So I'm just going to sort of start dropping them in wherever. Now comes the fun time, trying to figure out how to assemble this. So this will go together as one row. What I can do here is join those two, then join it to that. Same thing. Join those two, join these two, make it a square, and then that's a column. Same thing. These 2 rows will become a column. I think the only funny thing that I've done is right here, it's going to join these 3 columns. So I'll assemble those 2, that row, and add this and add that. Not too complicated. So what you can do to keep yourself from getting mixed up is just to work on one row at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here and just lay them right sides together, set my machine to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So that's the first pair, and then what I usually do is just grab the second pair. So what I'm going to do is stitch together sort of all the pairs that I can see, and then I'll start pressing them. So once you have sort of this odd arrangement, what you can do is start pressing them. Now, normally you either press to the dark side or press to the light side, or you can press open. It depends on your fabrics. Because this is going to be a placemat that I want to lay as flat as possible, I'm actually going to go ahead and press these seams open. It takes a little extra time, and some people say that the seams aren't as strong when you press them open, but it's a placemat, so it's honestly not going to be under so much stress and strain that it's going to fall apart because they're pressed open. And the way I'm intending on quilting this will also take care of that. And there you go. Once you get those pressed, now you can sort of start doing the second set of assembling. So again, I'm going to make this a square, start attaching those to that piece, attach those as a row, same thing, attach these as a row, attach this to that, and then attach this at the very end. And there we go, our first placemat. I will go ahead and do the other one off camera, but to show you quickly how to finish this up, what we'll need is one of our pieces of batting and one of our backing fabrics. Now, if you have a walking foot on your machine, you can certainly use it at this point because we are going to be stitching through the 2 layers of fabric plus the batting, so things might shift if you're not careful. But basically what we're going to do is put the batting down, then our patchwork top, and then our backing fabric is going to go right sides together. And what we're going to do is stitch all the way around, leaving about a hand width for you to be able to turn it inside and out. So I'm just going to start a couple inches before this corner and work my way around the quilt. Now, the one last thing to do before you can go ahead and turn this is to clip your corners. So what I like to do is come in at a bit of an angle and come close to that point, but not too close, and then clip off a little bit, because these 2 edges are now going to be facing each other on the inside. So that's sort of the kind of shape of a piece I cut off. And when you go to turn it, if you have like a purple fang, if you're a quilter, that's excellent for poking out corners. You can use your scissors if they aren't too sharp. I have these pair of tweezers that I use this metal end to sort of kind of run against all the seams, and that does a pretty good job. And then if I need to really get into a corner, I'll turn the tweezers around and just poke that little bit out. You just want to be careful with whatever you're using to make sure you don't accidentally poke too far and leave a hole in your fabric. And what you can do, another trick, is if you sort of pull it away from the edge and really just finger press that crease first, and then go here and roll over that edge. So once you get back to this front edge, what you'll have to do is just sort of turn it under and then just sort of finger press a 1/4 inch seam allowance. What you can do now is go back and top stitch around that edge about 1/8 of an inch from that edge, and that will secure that seam, that will close up this opening, and then this is sort of complete. Some people don't quilt them. I don't like to do that because if you throw this in the wash, it can shift and move, and sort of the batting will move a bit. So it needs some type of quilting. Now, if you want to keep it really simple, what you can do is either just, stitch a couple of straight lines in between. What you can do is use one of your decorative stitches on your sewing machine. If you have like a serpentine stitch or something that has like little hearts, you could do those along a couple of the lines. It really is up to you. If you're adventurous, you can drop your feed dogs, put on your free motion foot and do some little loops and hearts. And I think that's what I'm going to do just to make this super over the top, cute and sweet. So first things first, let's get it closed. And there we go. Now to set up our machine for some free motion quilting. So for me, all I have to do is remove that foot, add on this hopping foot, remove this plate and swap it out for the straight stitching plate. And now the machine senses where, so that is the appropriate space for that. So for doing these free motion stitching, what I'm going to do is just do some little loops and hearts and sort of kind of twisting around and then dropping in a little heart. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start near a corner, and it is a hopping foot, but you do need to make sure that it is lowered. So I'm going to do a needle up, needle down to bring up my bobbin thread. And needle down. And the last thing I need to do is to drop the feed dogs so they won't be pulling the fabric. Just speed up my machine a little bit more. And there we go. Our super cute quilted placemat, and if it has some of these corners after quilting want to stick up a bit, you can just give it a bit of a press. And there we go. I will bury those thread tails with a needle afterwards, but that is our super cute quilted placemat featuring the Be Mine fabrics by Stacy Shu. So I hope this was a bit of an inspiration for you to use your Fabric Snob stash stalker fabrics. And like I said, if the placemat, I'll write up a pattern for how I did it, but it was really kind of just having fun and cutting some shapes and going for it. Also, like I said, the pattern for the quilt behind me will be for sale on my website, mysterystitch.com. So if you wanted to do a larger project with them, I think that turned out super cute. And again, I'm really excited that Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and I'll have to start planning what type of a meal I'm going to do this year. So I hope you enjoy this and have a wonderful day, and check out the Fabric Snob for all these wonderful fabrics. And if you're looking for more patterns and ideas, you can check out mysterystitch.com. So thanks, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.